So markets got CPI data this morning and they liked it a lot. Really strong candle, over 1% on the initial move. You can see we chopped a little bit on my level 591, and then at the end of the session, we got a bit of a wick rejection and a lot of volume coming through there to the downside. So far markets have held up okay after hours, but let's see if there's anything underneath the hood giving us some pause. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So like I said, inflation came down to 3.2% in December, much lower than expectations. The outlook was 3.3, so better than expectation there. Markets surged on that data. Markets were very concerned after the strong jobs report. And then if inflation did go higher on the back of that, that was going to be terrible news. But so far, we've seen the core number step down from 3.3 to 3.2. You can see the headline number continuing to trend up a little bit. Nothing crazy there in 2.9. As long as it stays below the core number, that'll be good. Want to see it kind of reject in here as they both start to trend lower in the short term, but for now, these are good numbers and markets liked it. Moving over to fear and greed, we stepped up to a 29. I think we were at a 27 yesterday. I'm not sure why it's saying 26 there, but continuing to step up a little bit. Remember, this is just about as low as it goes. I thought we might get into that 17 to 20 range. We didn't quite get there, but we're seeing a little bit of an uptick, nothing crazy, momentum stepping higher, but extreme fear still across all the major metrics. Put call ratio still elevated there at a 0.74. Volatility obviously pulling back with the rally we saw today, and then safe haven demand, extreme fear still, junk bonds, no change in greed. So markets not really going too much higher on the metrics despite the price action. Then looking at seasonality here, just as a reminder, this is a seasonally bullish period. Post-election years, pretty bullish, 2 to 2.5%. Nasdaq's generally the best, followed closely by the Russell. We haven't seen this rally through yet, but maybe with today's catalyst, we can start to see some rallies through. Potentially, just need to see the follow through, and we'll look at that on the charts. Then moving over to the earnings calendar, everything was pretty good here today, except for Wells Fargo on the top line. Everybody else beat, so pretty good numbers there. Markets liked this for the most part. And then looking at tomorrow, some more banks, expecting those to be pretty good. United Health is in there. That could be fairly interesting. They were in the news recently for the death of their CEO. Wonder what they'll say about that on the earnings call. Could be interesting. And then into the Friday, a little bit more financials as well as SLB. And then looking at Max Payne, you can see it is now red across the board after today's move. So red all the way through until that Friday session, down 2 and almost 2.25% there. So pretty big step down based on what we're seeing on Max Payne numbers. Remember, this is a third week options expiration. We'll see how much lower it can go into this move here, but Max Payne quite a bit lower for the next couple days. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the S&Ps, you can see we gapped up and rallied through that 591.09 level. We're through all the EMAs and SMAs, so we're technically back to bullish conditions there with the move today. And then looking at this downtrend line, you can see marks multiple tops over the last couple of weeks. Probably going to come into this zone and touch tomorrow. We'll see what happens. After hours, you're up just a little bit on the SPY charts, so we'll see if that follow through comes into the level. The trend is going to be there pretty much at the session highs, 594.20. Momentum step into bullish, RSI breaking back above the SMA. We've seen this a couple of times. We generally reject off of this trend. We've done it about 4 times now, so we'll see. This is going to be interesting. If it rejects from here, my expectation is back down to this trend in here around 579, which is more in line with those Max Payne numbers that we just looked at. So keep in mind, critical zone of resistance, and you can see that here on the hourly chart as well. Rallied up, pushed through this zone here, right through this trend in the open, close to this zone here. Again, I think that's why we're seeing a little bit of selling there at the end of the session. Just over 2 million shares traded on that last candle of the day, which was a bearish candle. We got a little bit of follow through to the downside there. Again, 591.09 is your support. Got the trend resistance in here, 594.20 or so. And then if it breaks through here, 599.64 is the upside level in my opinion. Could absolutely find a little bit of resistance in here, but I would be looking for a push to that next zone in there. Moving over to the Tasty charts here, you can see first candle right through those upper ATR bands, pushed us back into bullish conditions. Volume again on that last candle, a little bit of a bearish candle, not super great. And we're also at that upper ATR band. Right now, you would expect at least a little bit of a pullback. We'll see how it plays out in tomorrow's open. And then looking at it here on the daily chart, just to give you some reference, we're still very much in bearish conditions. Your trailing stop is at 607.94, so way up here, just at these previous relative highs. Moving over to the NASDAQ charts, similar thesis, 2.3%, very, very strong move right to these upper trends here. This is going to be the zone of resistance, 21 EMA, 518.99, my level 519.48. We're also retesting this trend here. We did close above it, so that's a little bit bullish as well. Momentum indicator good, RSI above the SMA, so that's good. Last time we did get above it, and then we sold off from there. Is that going to be another occurrence? Hard to say. Realistically, based on this structure, I would expect a rejection from here, some kind of a bottoming structure, either a double bottom in here, maybe a higher low setup at the 503.50 level. Want to see it touch this zone, hold the higher low, and then look for that bigger continuation style move. But for now, what you have is a series of highs and lower highs and lows and lower lows, and that structure is not broken yet, even with the move that we saw here today. And then looking at it on the hourly chart, I traded pretty well and I did make money. Obviously on the first up move, I was bullish into that, so that was good. I tried to double down after we got the level break here at 514.92, got stopped out on this move here, re-engaged to the upside through here, made some money, made all that money back, and then made some more to the upside. Honestly though, I was a little bit frustrated. You can see in here you were getting pretty strong moves, and then you got a really choppy hesitation in here, and then we ended up getting that continuation through once we got the break here. So got chopped up in here, still made money on it, but not nearly as much as I should have. We went right to the trend, hit the trend, and then sold off really aggressive. And similarly to the SPY, you can see 3 big bear bars, huge volume coming through on the selling, big sell candle after hours, getting a little bit of a relief rally in here, but my guess is that this is going to be overhead resistance again, and you're going to see big selling action from here, and then I would expect this to continue to break down here into the open of tomorrow's session, and then looking for that lower low. Like I said, 503 is probably the target. Moving over to the Tasty charts just for a moment, you can see we're getting close to that mid-range here. I would expect rejection from there if we even got to it and touched it. Either way though, expecting a lower low, maybe a retest of that 89 EMA, which is right now at 502.89. That could be a zone where we kind of reject from here, hold the 89 for a second test, and then get the continuation. If that structure breaks, then you're looking for the 144 right in line with that lowest ATR band, which right now is sitting all the way down at 490. So definitely some interesting scenarios right here. Critical, looking for the rejection. Then moving over to the Russell and the Dow, as you would expect, they were much, much higher on the day, gapped up really strong on the Russell, almost hit the level 226.02, and then we sold off a little bit from there, still stayed up about 2% on the day. Momentum bullish, RSI still looking bullish. We're back into this kind of consolidation range. Could not get above the highs of that range, so for now, I would expect to kind of stay in this range until we see a clean break one way or the other. This is overall bullish for me though, because you have a consolidation range, a dip low, and then we got bought back up into the range. So I would expect a swing high from here. It doesn't mean we can't see a little bit of consolidation first. And then looking at the Dow, gapped right to the level here, 432.78. Touched that level and then sold off a little bit, so we're just below it. It's holding up after hours. Momentum a little bit bullish, RSI still bullish. Both of these still look good, but it wouldn't shock me to see a little bit of pullback in the short term. Moving over to the Mag 7. Mag 7 did really well, up nearly 4%, pushed right to the 21 EMA. It's down a little bit after hours, again rejecting off of that zone there, but momentum bullish, RSI bullish. We'll see if we can get above and hold the 21 and VWAP in there at 232.16. Right now we're back below it after hours, so critical zone once again as we head into tomorrow's session. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft, both of these did really well as you would expect, 2% and 2.5% respectively. Apple coming off of the touch at the 230 level, breaking back above 237.23. Right now that's your support. As long as it can hold that, looking for a push to 241, and then potentially the trends after that in here around 245. VWAP and the 21 EMA probably trending into that zone, and then we'll see, is that going to be major resistance or not? And then looking at Microsoft, like we said, the touch was 413.36, held that level, got the rally up from there. 429.88 was the target if we held that support. Right now we held it, looking for a push in here. You got VWAP and the 21 EMA going to continue to trend down into that zone. If we reject from there, maybe we get a lower high, continuation lower to lower low. If we can get above it and break out, then we're looking for that 440.72 level. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA, Tesla was up 8%, absolutely massive, coming off of the trend here. Pushed right through the 21 and VWAP, momentum back to bullish, RSI back to bullish, everything looks good there. Looking for the gap fill back to the close of the 27th of December. The close there was 431.66, the high today was 429.80, so just a little bit higher to get that gap fill. It's down a smidgen after hours, and then similarly here on NVIDIA, nice up day, 3.4%. Still looking at the 21 and the trend as resistance, 430.35 was the support. You can see 2 touches here. Held that, gapped up and rallied. So momentum looks okay. Want to see this kind of swing a little bit better, but the structure here on NVIDIA is still not super great for me. Moving over to Amazon and Alphabet. Amazon was up 2.5%, continues to look good there. Touched the trend like we talked about yesterday. Got the big gap and rally from there. 21 EMA is your resistance at 223.84. And then if we can get through here, the all-time highs are right there at 233. And then looking at Google here, you can see up move to the highs of this kind of consolidation range. We're back above VWAP, back above short-term EMAs, momentum stepping up, RSI looking good. We're back in this kind of consolidation range. I just don't really see this breaking out above this trend structure here, so maybe we see a nice rally up to 203, but once we get into the zone, I would expect another rejection back into the zone before we see some kind of pullbacks, higher low setup, then maybe some continuations through here or not, potentially. But for now, this looks like consolidation, and I would expect a wick rejection. Moving over to Staples and discretionaries, you got Staples down 0.34, so Staples still holding this trend support, still holding this support structure in here. After hours, it's up a smidgen, really very little change relative to where we've been for the last 4 days. And then looking at discretionaries, big gap up 2.5%, pretty much in line with Amazon. 21 EMA is currently a resistance. Got trend resistance just behind that at 228.87. Then moving over here to financials and oil and gas products. Financials had a really strong day, 4.5% in there, very good. Coming off of this trend structure here, momentum stepping back to bullish. This can probably head back to the highs in that 51.50 area. And then oil and gas continues to be a rocket ship, 1.9%, right up to 145.92. That was the price target after the break yesterday. High of day was 146.05. So we touched that level by a few pennies. Momentum still bullish, definitely overbought now. We'll see if we reject from there or not. Moving over to RIOT and Marathon, both of these have had a little bit of a rough time. That's why we haven't been talking about them. But today we had a nice move. On the back of the CPI data, Bitcoin went a little bit higher. RIOT was up 10%, still looking for that 1418 level. You got a little bit of a double bottom here on Mara, coming back to the end of December, touching the zone once again, 13 January. Now we've held up. We're starting to see a little bit of a rally. Want to see it get above 1878 and hold that structure. Once we can hold that support in here, then we can start to look for a bigger push back into this consolidation range up here in the 25 area. Either way, these both look a little better here today than they have over the past couple of days. Moving over to breadth, just like that, 20-day breadth is already above the 50 line in just a couple of days. We were down here in the 20s and now we're back above the 50s. At a 56.85, we'll see how much higher this can go. The mid 70s to mid 80s is just about as high as it goes. Occasionally get into the 90s, but not super often. So I wouldn't expect to go too much higher from here once we get into the 75 range. We've talked about this many times, but once you get here, you can see a definite consolidation here before you see a little bit of selling. But we are getting into that range where moves start to culminate fairly close. The high of day was all the way up at 66.4, so almost there already. 1 to 2 more days I would expect to get there as long as we continue higher from here. And then 50-day continuing higher as well. Touch that 32.2 level, waiting to see if it continues through to that 40 area. Got some trend resistance in there. We've had a solid base. We've been talking about it. This still looks bullish for me. Just waiting to see where we get that rejection. Moving over to yields, we finally got the sell on yields. We've been talking about it forever, that yields were overbought in my opinion. And finally, we got a little bit of a normalization here with the CPI data. 2-year coming down to 4.25. You like to see that. And then 10-year coming back down to 4.6. You like to see that as well. This is a major reason we saw equities definitely gaining some strength here. If this continues lower, that'll be good for equities. If it kind of bases off in here around 4.5, maybe we see equities slow down once again. But for now, nice cooling candle. Want to see this continue lower. Moving over to the dollar kind of had some mixed feelings on that CPI data, so it went lower as you would expect, but then we retraced all of that move, overthrew the move, and then kind of finished relatively unchanged on the day. So interesting to see that. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish, but 3 down candles in a row, kind of holding some support in here. I would stay neutral on the dollar. Key resistance, uptrend, says neutral for me. Moving over to bonds. Bonds had an amazing day, as you would expect, 0.19 and 1.7% respectively. For J&K and TLT, momentum bullish, RSI bullish, everything looks good. Hopefully you've been buying bonds in here. Like I've been saying, buying bonds is the best thing to do right now, in my opinion. Bonds and real estate is what I've been buying, and it does look good here. I think we're going to go a little bit higher, at least to the 89 area. This is about as low as it goes, in my opinion. Between $84 and $85 makes sense. Nice little up move. I would expect some continuation higher. Moving over to the VIX, big selling candle. We said it looked a little bit bearish, broke that 18.5 level. Now the question is, do we find support at the trend in here at about 15.7? Touch this zone tomorrow, I would expect. If it holds the higher low and pushes up, that's going to be very dangerous for markets. If it cuts through here and continues lower back into the 13s, then markets are probably going to head higher. Moving over to my accounts, you can see I made about $600, maybe a little short of $600. Overall, good trading day. I didn't make as much as markets. Obviously, I was short puts, but I did participate in most of the gains, so that was good. Overall, $2,200 up for the year already. Pretty strong performance early in January, in my opinion. But right now, we're at those key levels of resistance, so I did take off all of my bullish positions. I was actually a little bit short going into the close. I made a little money on that, and I decided to take it off last minute. I still think we're going to go a little bit lower, and I definitely will put those positions back on if we start to see some selling in tomorrow's session off of those key levels. But I do acknowledge that all of the short-term indicators are bullish. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of the markets today. What did you think of the CPI data, and where are markets going next? Let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.